America is at a crossroad. Never before have we stumbled so spectacularly on the world stage as we have in recent years. The pandemic has brought many of our biggest issues to light. Homelessness and the mental health crisis have reached epidemic levels. Freedom of speech is under threat. Politics has never been more toxic, and corporate greed has reached heartbreaking levels. The climate crisis has brought a dramatic increase in natural disasters. Meanwhile, we stand on the threshold of artificial intelligence, which could serve as the best tool to help us deal with many of these challenges if we can keep the power out of the hands of a few. How do we deal with these many issues? By speaking radically, honestly about these challenges and their solutions. By becoming more enlightened to the facts and raising human consciousness, we can use this unprecedented moment in human history to create the most extraordinary advancement in our collective experience. I'm host Shaman Isis. Welcome to Citizen Journalist. Hi, and welcome to Citizen Journalist. I'm your host, Shaman Isis, also known as Cynthia to my friends and family. And I'm so excited about today's show because we're going to be talking about the state of nutrition and food, basically, and supplements in the world. And I am very, very excited to have an incredible guest, an incredible inventor and businesswoman to talk about this topic today. Welcome, Melissa Snover, CEO and founder of Nourished. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to get stuck into this very important and poignant topic.
Yes. So, this episode, I really wanted this to be all about kind of the health crisis that we find ourselves in because of the state of nutrition, and your experience is just so suited to talking to that. What are your thoughts on sort of the major contributing factors to the situation we find ourselves in?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you can hear in my voice, I'm American, but I've been living in Europe for almost 15 years. And what I can tell you is that the main contributors that I can see is really linked to the differences. So I'm a scientist, so I'm always looking for correlative evidence and where's the variable. And the biggest difference that I see in the food supply in the United States is the sheer mass of the amount of ultra processed foods. And so when you process a food to make it last longer, make it taste better with less quality ingredients, you have to add other things. And certainly none of these things are good for you. So these things are things like sugar, high levels of sodium, preservatives, trans fats. And when you consume a huge amount of those types of products instead of natural products and fresh produce and fresh fruits and vegetables, you see some really, really negative health implications, basically leading to the three biggest causes of death, right? So this is diabetes, this is heart disease, and these are all of the other diseases around heart disease and like morbid obesity, overweightness, etc., which is also an ongoing thing throughout life, as well as can potentially be the end. I think sugary drinks are probably the biggest offender on the list for me. The amount of calories and sugar in such a small product is really crazy. But, all of the products that we buy on a daily basis, we need to read labels more. And I think people are not, haven't been thinking about that. They've been trustworthy. They've been trustful. And I think that people need to, turn the pack around.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm glad that you mentioned that about the trust, because I think that's what, in America in particular, this sort of like blind faith in the systems and that they know better than us. And, if you go back to the food pyramid from when I was a child, even I remember looking at it. I know, right? As an American, you're like, oh, I know. I mean, I remember looking at it and I was like, but and they were like, shh. And I was like, but I don't, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then you find out it was all dictated by people who are going to make money off of it. So,
totally. Yeah.
Right. Do you feel like, have you noticed in your experience, your lifetime, the increase of the numbers of people who are struggling with illnesses that are indirect correlation to the types of processed foods that you're talking about? And as a scientist as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to mention that this crisis is not unique to the United States. In a lot of ways, there are a lot of countries, particularly in the Middle East, that have some really big challenges around diabetes and obesity. Where I think America is actually unique is the fact that such a large number of people are being affected, and they are of every socioeconomic group, right? And I think in other countries, you see very strong correlations between certain socioeconomic groups, access to different foods, and then, the level of nutrition that they're consuming. I think, when I used to live in the United States, I remember every single weekend, my dad would go to Sam's, he would bulk buy everything. And when you bulk buy everything and you need that stuff to last a really long time, you've got to add a bunch of stuff to it to make it last that length of time. And you also run into the situation where that same food that maybe on day one, unprocessed, had a really strong nutritional compound, it no longer has that because over time it loses. So vitamins and minerals out of fresh produce will dissipate over time. That's why they always say fresh is best. But in addition, some of these products are made up of little parts of other whole foods and then processed together. And what you get is something that, might taste good, but is certainly not good for you. It's got a really messed up mixture of bad macros, with a ton of salt and a ton of sugar. And salt and sugar are going to make you, much more prevalent to, suffer from things like diabetes, cholesterol, high cholesterol, and eventually, coronary heart disease. And so this is a big challenge. I think it is not convenient to eat healthily. I think that's really important to mention. It's not convenient to eat healthily. You have to really change the way that you live. And in Europe, I think that this stems from the fact that our houses are smaller. Like in London, the houses are tiny, really expensive ones, but they're very small. You can't bulk buy. There's nowhere to put it all. You have to go to the grocery store 3 or 4 times a week to buy little and often. And so you're buying more fresh produce. You're buying things that are not processed because they don't need to last for 2 years. They need to last for a couple of days. And so I think that's a weird reason, but that I think has a lot to do with it, is that there's no option really to bulk buy in some of these countries where their whole business, their whole, residential settings are not set up for this type of thing.
Yeah, it's almost like the McMansions were built to house all the garbage food that the Americans were going to be eating. This is a conspiracy. Don't get me started on the conspiracies, because honestly, the more I dig in the rabbit hole of how it all works, the more it's like, okay, 3 major companies seem to own most every brand in America, and many of them globally, and they all seem to benefit from making people sick or dependent. It's kind of crazy. How do the dietary and food systems in America, I mean, as somebody who lives in Europe and has traveled extensively, how do the systems here differ from what you've seen globally, particularly in the UK?
So I think there's a couple of big differences between America and the rest of the world. So one is the legality of artificial colors and flavors. So these are totally, they're not illegal, but if you use them in the UK, you have to put a warning label on the front of your packet that says that the product may cause ADHD and hyperactivity in children. And these ingredients are not even allowed in countries like China, but they are allowed in the United States, which baffles me to the core. I cannot believe it. And we can get into the conspiracy because I've probably read the same research that you have read. But yeah, it is actually very scary to see that. And in addition, GMO is a much bigger topic than just those 3 letters. But the use of genetically modified crops started in the 70s, and we see a lot of these health trends starting in the 70s, whereas in the UK, everything is non-GMO. So it's really funny, as a brand that sells in America now, like we have to put that on our product. We would never put it on our product in England. Like it's just taken for granted. Like everything is non-GMO, everything is no pesticides, everything is no antibiotics. So you don't need these huge organic sections. You don't need to pay extra for that. Like that's just standard, right? So I think that's something that's really unique. The other thing I think which is unique is in most other, at least in the most other G7 countries, there have been fiscal policy enacted in order to encourage people not to consume certain products. And I'll give you an example. In the UK, to buy a soda or any kind of drink, to be fair, that has high sugar, you have to pay extra. There's a extra tax on a sugary soda as opposed to a diet or zero soda. And so really they've almost disappeared. In less than a year, you can't, when you go to a convenience store, you can't even find them because no one will pay more. They're just choosing on price and they taste the same. The sweeteners that are allowed in the UK and Europe are very different than the sweeteners allowed in the United States. And as you mentioned before, there are a ton of brands that are huge in America that reformulate their products and sell their products here, but the labels are clean enough to go into Whole Foods here. And these are snack products and products you would not think, that's something that you could sell in a Whole Foods. But yeah, the labels are clean. And so I just think that's government doing a job in the rest of the world that I think in the US is not at the same level, if I'm being polite.
Well, I honestly, to be slightly political, I mean, when you start to open that can of worms, that is all about big corporations paying the right people to be allowed to do things. So there's two stories that are going on right now here in America, which I think you'll find interesting. And they've been going on for a little bit, but it's like they have these peaks. So it turns out that Lunchables, which is a prepackaged food, very common in every grocery store in America, which would probably never be sold in Europe because they're pickier than we are. Lunchables has more than 75% lead than you're supposed to even have in your diet.
Oh no!
Lunchables, guys, sold in every grocery store in America is full of lead, and they actually put it in schools.
That's insane.
Unbelievable. And also people are realizing and discovering that baby formula companies, because there's been the birth rate globally is going down, but I believe they've been doing this for a few years regardless of the birth rate. Baby formula companies have been paying off politicians actively lobbying to prevent women from having maternity leave, because if they don't have maternity leave, they will put their children on baby formula. So those are two stories that are right now.
Oh my God. If that is true, that is so evil.
Oh, can I tell you?
I honestly cannot believe that. That's horrible.
I thought that was hard to believe, but I started looking into it, and it turns out the baby formula industry has had some pretty scary scandals in terms of the things that they've done in other countries that they were able to get away with, particularly supported by the US, because, we just love interfering with the way other things are done if it's going to benefit our richest companies. But do you think there's truth? We don't need to get into the baby formula and the Lunchables, but do you think there's truth behind the fact that the reason that America has such a massive nutritional issue and health crisis, goes all the way back to the fact that corporations sort of own our politicians?
Yeah. So without getting into any individual case, I think the biggest challenge with the US is the way that the lobbying works around government, and the fact that the candidate with the most money usually wins. And that is really a trend that has lasted the strength of time. And so they all need to raise an absolutely ton of money. And so that allows for, independent businesses and diverse interests to be able to be owed favors of some kind. Now, obviously, it's not said like that, but that is what it is. In the UK, there is actually a rule that there's no TV commercials for the governmental elections at all. There's only one thing televised. It's on BBC, so it's publicly funded TV for a debate. There's no advertising allowed whatsoever. So most of the money they need is for advertising, is for campaign, TV commercials. Mm-hmm. And so if the government made it so that those were not allowed, you could actually eliminate the need for lobbying groups to pay in all that money. The candidates wouldn't need to raise all that money. They wouldn't have all of these diverse interests trying to, influence them. And then I think we would have so that's, I think, the very root cause. Yeah. If you want to go back to how you can solve it from an organizational point of view. But the story that I know the most about, and funnily enough, I wrote a paper about it in university, and then I studied it again when I came to the UK and became a nutritionalist, is the story about the artificial colors. the late colors, they're made by certain people. Those people also make medicine. The linkage is unignorable.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's when I tell, it's amazing how when I tell people that, and because I do a show called Citizen Journalist, people sometimes go, that's a conspiracy theory. And I'm like, it's not really a conspiracy theory that companies sell products here in America that they have to reformulate and repackage to be healthier to sell in other countries. And Americans seem to be okay with that because they don't actually believe it. I think fundamentally they think it's like this gross exaggeration. What are some of the like alarming trends and statistics that you're seeing regarding, nutrition and dietary situations?
So I think going back to the ultra processed foods thing, there was a huge study done on the effect of ultra processed foods on health. It was a massive, massive sample set. I can't remember exactly how many, but it was thousands and thousands of people in a meta study. And they all consumed an increased amount of 10% more ultra processed foods for a period of time. And across the board, all of them saw an increased risk of heart disease and overall mortality of 10%. It is a direct one-to-one correlation. Like, I don't know how much clearer the science can be. That is really, really clear science. They did it from like 18-year-olds all the way up to 64-year-olds, men and women, all different types of health levels. Like, that is extremely, science isn't normally that neat.
Wow, no, it's not.
Get a one-to-one ratio on something that is insane to me. So the idea that we are even allowing ultra-processed foods to be sold when they are potentially more poisonous than things like, smoking, that's nuts. That's pretty nuts. If you really just take all the emotion out of it and just go, let's look at the science and why are we letting people do that? And there are, I'm sure, a lot of complicated things. I think what is it resulting in? It's resulting in some very scary statistics, like up to 75% of the American population is overweight or obese. That's extremely upsetting and very scary, right? And I think the rates of things like diabetes, high blood pressure, coronary heart disease, cardiovascular conditions is super, super high, all backed up by this correlation to ultra processed foods and all of these additional additives that are put in these foods. So for me, when I'm looking at it from a scientist's background, I'm saying these numbers are very clear. Certainly getting rid of them wouldn't hurt. Why are we not looking closer at it? And then you say, oh, wait, a lot of countries don't allow them. And then, oh, okay, well, maybe there's something else going on. And that's when you have to wonder what's going on. If somebody really, I think people, not just in America, but everywhere, you tell them that you might potentially develop a disease someday in the future if you eat that X, they think they're invincible. Everybody does. It's like the default position in the brain. Yeah. But the thing that I think will get people to make changes is the obesity and overweightness. So people can see that, it's visible. And I think that is the way that people will or want to try and make a change. Unfortunately, the trend that I see on that point is people going, instead of changing my diet and instead of changing my my exercise, I'm going to look at prescription medication for that. And I think that is that's a difficult one, because
I talk about that in Unleash the Empress, because I had put on 80 pounds of depression weight, and diabetes and celiac runs very heavily in my family. When I changed I had to change it. I just woke up one day and said, that's it, girl. Nobody's going to come save you. No one's going to come get you fit and healthy or happy. You're going to have to do that all for yourself. And so I underwent this extraordinary transformation and changed everything. And almost everything I eat, I make myself.
Congratulations.
Really key. Yeah, that's been really key. Yeah, it's made a huge difference. And I have almost gotten not sick at all since I made that change. Like, just so rarely do I get sick. And I talked about that in Unleash the Empress, because that's where I shared that story where I said things like surgery and prescriptions are temporary, they're temporary. You're going to put the weight back on because you're not changing your your thought habits, and it's those thought habits that lead to the other habits that end up leading to the unhappiness and weight gain or whatever the negative aspect of it is. Do you think that there's this movement towards seeing Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes? Is that something that you're hearing about in the UK? Is there any science around that yet?
Uh, I have studied Alzheimer's and I have not seen any data on that specifically. The idea that it would be potentially caused by eating too much sugar. The degenerative nature of that disease is primarily, well, they don't know, do they? That's the key. Nobody knows for sure, but the 500 plus different clinical trials happen every year around Alzheimer's are all narrowing down and focusing on certain types of areas. And I haven't seen any that are focusing on anything related to sugar and diabetes, but yeah, not to say I've read them all. I haven't.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending stream of new information, which is wonderful, which is what we want to see in a horrible disease like Alzheimer's, where there needs to be a solution. But no, I've found that there's a lot more around the prevention, protecting the brain with extremely strong antioxidants, resveratrol, ashwagandha, turmeric, anti-inflammation. I haven't seen that about the diabetes.
I'm just curious. I'd read something. So I'm curious. Did your experiences living in the U.S. and the U.K. were they a part of what led to your work and the creation of your company? Which, to my viewers, listeners, you guys, this is I don't ever rave about brands, but Melissa is the CEO and founder of Nourished, and it is so badass and so futuristic, which I love anything futuristic. I love anything that uses 3D printing. I just think it's so cool. Did that have anything to do with the founding of the company? Can you share the story behind how that all came about?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I came to the UK, I had no idea that the American food supply was unique, right? Like I'd traveled to like Mexico and Canada, but I'd never, gone over to Europe before. And so it was a massive learning curve for me. First of all, they have different foods here, like we just don't eat in America, but also just the way that they do things. What is interesting now is when I go back to America and I eat something with an artificial color in it, I can tell. It's weird because I've been here long enough that I can actually feel the difference. It makes me like angstful, like quite annoyed. It's weird. Anyway, but the reason I started to develop Nourished was I have been a huge, what would you call it, enthusiast, studier of all things around biohacking, optimization. How can I improve my nutrition in the smartest way possible to enable me to achieve my goals today and protect my future for tomorrow? I read an unnatural amount of stuff on a daily and weekly basis. And I have been doing that since I was in university, when I wanted to focus better, remember things better, when I wanted to perform better at university was the first time I started to think about it. And so I've been taking vitamins and supplements for a really long time. When I had my previous company, which was doing 3D printing of confectionery, so I developed the first ever food printer to be able to create customized confectionery. And I was actually traveling in Dusseldorf airport, and an unfortunate incident occurred where my bag zipper grabbed my disgusting plastic Ziploc bag of vitamins and sprayed them all over the floor in the security check-in in Dusseldorf airport, and on my hands and knees in a skirt in the airport, picking up my vitamins. I was thinking to myself, gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I thought, wow, well, we have a 3D printer that can customize food. I wonder if we can do this. And so I drew the picture of what I wanted to create and brainstormed on the plane home. And the next day came in and spoke to my team about it. They really liked the idea. So we started doing feasibility right away. And that was in 2019. I then raised a seed round and built our first factory in 2020. And it's been go, go, go ever since. The products we can make over 60 billion products. So we really mean it when we say it's authentically personalized. Every person's is made fresh to order, is free from all artificial ingredients, sodium and sugar, vegan, and we only use whole food sourced natural ingredients that are backed by clinical data. And we only ever include the beneficial payload. And what that means is a lot of vitamins and supplement brands will say like contains 47 blah, blah, blah vitamins and nutrients, but it has like 1%, 2%. Is pointless.
Yeah.
We include only the 100% of the beneficial dose in our products. So you don't need to think about it again. You can just have it. It tastes like a gummy. They're like a rainbow, like this. Oh, sorry. Hold on. I'm trying to figure out how to do this with my phone this way. There we go.
I was going to ask you to show. Oh, it looks like a cake, like a sparkly cake. I love that.
Rainbow cake. Yeah. And so, and every person's looks different. So I change my stack every 3 months, depending on what I need, sometimes more frequently if I want to change my flavor. And that concept is all over the world now, in Japan and all sorts of places. And we're now doing also retail lines as well. So yeah, it's been an exciting journey. But we try and really help people. Like I think I mentioned at the beginning, eating healthily is not convenient. Like that's the juxtaposition that needs to be solved. So you said you cook all your own food. I also cook my food. I have to batch cook all my food on a Sunday so that I have something to eat every day because I have no time during the week. But it's not convenient and not everyone can do that. So how can we as a business support people who are busy plate spinning moms and dads with careers who are running around trying to take over the world, look after the kids, take the dog out, do the taxes? It's hard. So our products are really like a convenient solution that helps them to get extra nutrition that either they're not going to get out of their diet, but also that they would never eat anyway. So, a lot of nutrients come from whole foods, but you need a huge amount. So in this layer, there is 140 kilograms worth of turmeric root. But you're not going to eat that in a day, are you?
Yeah,
that would be a lot. That would make a mess. And so that's just an example. So I think if we can offer people a solution like that, then I think we never ever will be the replacement for food, and we never want to be. But we try and provide information to people and try and offer a solution that will help them supplement a healthy diet to get things that are difficult to get from normal food or that are difficult to get from their day to day.
I think that's so incredible. You guys, I'm going to test out the product. I'm going to be the guinea pig to see the difference in my energy level, and I'll report to you on the change in how I feel. It looks so incredible. I've had a couple of experiences with supplements. So I intuitively knew, and I don't know if it's the spiritual side of me, but I intuitively knew that most supplements in stores were BS. And I was just like, you're just peeing this out. And then I went on a tour of a supplement factory, and then I went on 2 more tours of 2 other supplement factories. And by the time it was done, I was like, I don't trust anything on shelves. I'm not taking it. And then, of course, there was a scandal a few years ago where all the major chain stores had to pull a ton of vitamins and minerals from their shelves because it turned out that they surprise tested them, and they had all these ingredients like, wall. I forget what they used to build walls and houses, but it had stuff like that in there, and it didn't have the stuff it was supposed to. So I think it's incredible that your product offers customization, which is so cool, and just something you don't see very often in the wellness world. For a product like this in particular, it offers customization, and it's cool. It tastes good. It's freshly made. It's vegan based. Like, just incredible. How is it available online? Is it something that people can?
Yeah, so getnourished.com for US that's the site, and if they just type it into to Google, you can find it. Just type in nourished or personalized gummies, you'll find it. We're the only ones in the world that can do what we do, so you can usually find us with the search bar. But yeah, you're right. Customization is impossible to do in mass manufacturing, which all those factories you went to were mass manufacturers. And there's so many challenges with that I saw when I was developing this that I wanted to solve for. So the first one is they make those products 2 years before you eat them. And they are losing vitamin and nutrient density every day. People think, oh, but it's in a capsule. It doesn't matter. It's still happening. Osmosis is still happening. And in addition to that, yeah, like you said, the absorbability of fat-soluble nutrients in a pill or a liquid is very low. You need to include food, which is why most of them say take with food. We just include it in a food. We put it inside of a food molecule for you. So you don't need to do any of that extra work. We use apple pectin as our hydrocolloid bond molecule, and it holds all of the nutrients inside. When you get the product, it's probably 3 or 4 days old maximum. So that is the freshest vitamin you'll ever get. And so fresh is better, not just for vegetables, but actually for everything. Yeah.
I love that. And come on, you guys, they're ridiculously cute. I mean, who doesn't want to take really something that's healthy for you, that's tasty and adorable? You're going to want to show them to everybody. Oh my gosh. So before we go, because the show's all about Soltech almost said soundbites, the solutions. That's our event series. Soltech's Citizen Journalist podcast is all about taking important topics to solutions. Do you think that this type of product is really an incredible solution for dealing with the lack of nutrition in a lot of foods around the world? Or how do you see that actually? I'm just curious.
So I think our product definitely has a part to play in supporting people live their best lives, but it absolutely is not a solution for the crisis that we've been talking about today. I think if it's really easy. It is not new, but people just need to do it. And it's like people think that in science will come up with something new so they don't have to do this. You need to eat the rainbow, and you need to eat the maximum number of different, ideally mostly plants and fruits. It should be like 75-25 ratio at the very most, as possible, not only for you to get the most diverse set of nutrients, because the rainbow of the color of the food indicates the kind of vitamins and nutrients inside. Your mom was right. Eat the rainbow. But in addition to that, there's a ton of talk about microbiome, right? The more diverse plants and vegetables that you eat and fruits that you eat, the better the diversity of your microbiome in your gut, which also improves your immunity, which you just talked about, and helps so many systems in your body we don't fully even understand yet. But this is such an important thing, and it's not difficult to do. It's not revolutionary, but that's really what I think is going to be the solution. People need to eat more plants. Yeah.
Wow, what an incredible conversation, Melissa! It's been such a joy to talk to you and to talk the truth around nutrition, particularly here in America. Congratulations on the product and all the success.
Thank you.
If people wanted to, just in case anybody missed it earlier, if people wanted to order your product, where do they go?
They go to get-nourished.com or just type it into Google.
Get-nourished.com. Amazing. If they wanted to follow you guys on social media, are you active on any of the platforms?
Of course, all of them. And our handle is Nourish3D.
Oh, I love that. That's so awesome. Yeah. I love it. Well, you guys, there's your some harsh truths about the state of nutrition in the world. If you're not already making your food, I highly recommend you begin to prepare your own food. It doesn't require you to be a master chef, I promise you. I had to go through it myself. And thank you again to Melissa, CEO and founder of Nourished, for coming on and sharing her insight and experience. Thank you so much, Melissa. I appreciate it. And if you guys have not already checked out Memory Mansion, make sure you can see it. Sorry, I'm on the road, so I'm blurring my background. Oh, there we go. If you haven't already checked out Memory Mansion, go check it out. It hit #1 on the bestseller list, and it's also in #2 and #3 in spirituality and women's spirituality. So thank you to everybody who did order it. It's available in audiobook as well as ebook, hardcover and paperback. So go check it out. Memory Mansion by Shaman Isis, and soultech.world to learn more about the podcast and all the work that we do, like the Soundbites to Solutions in event series. I'm going totally blank. Anyway, Melissa, good luck to you, and I look forward to testing out your product and sharing my incredible experience with other people.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to hear your feedback, and I really appreciate it. I had a great time.
Thank you. Yeah, you guys have a good week, and we'll be back soon enough with more Citizen Journalist. Bye.